but you got to experience the touring life. And,
I was in the last generation, I think, that unfortunately for everybody else, was able to grab a couple of your friends and hop in the back of a van. As long as you sold 4 t-shirts that night, you could get to the next town.
Hello, and welcome to Group Chat. I'm your host, Bentley, and today I'm excited to welcome Josh Mullin, co-owner of Jackrabbit in Buffalo, also the drummer for Uncle Ben's Remedy, based out of Buffalo. We have George Davis for the first time here on the show. He's a vocal coach for area musicians and was the vocal coach for Dreamgirls, which was very impressive, and has been a music teacher in Buffalo for over 30 years and still is. And then we have Buck Quigley, frontman, songwriter for the Steam Donkeys in Buffalo, also in the Buffalo Music Hall of Fame, and continues to create. So will be a good guest here on the show today because we are talking about the sounds of storytelling, in particular around country music, because there's been a lot of talk about country music lately. And then, even when we were talking about doing this topic, then the Grammys came and split the category. So we're going to talk about that, and we'll talk about country music from classic storytelling to experimentation and how country music captures the spirit of everyday life and also the history of country music. And then we'll zoom out to the bigger picture with this year's music awards season and all of the talk around the genre. But first, as we get to know everybody, we know Josh a little bit because he's been on before, but what are the things that are going on in your group chats? What are the things that you're talking about? George got a smile on his face there.
Well, there's a lot going on in my group chats. We're talking about authenticity with performers. We're talking about realistic portrayals of different genres as far as what the artist needs to do as a performer. What does AI, how does AI and its use affect musicians and also storytelling?
Yeah, good. We're going to talk about that. So that's perfect. And Buck, how about you?
Oh, well, I think a lot of things that George was saying would apply as well. The AI thing is fascinating. As an artist or, as a human being artist.
Yeah.
It's just kind of daunting to think that something that can be just spat out, by fully orchestrated, it's challenging, right?
Yeah.
To think, and what is the real purpose of a song? What is the purpose of the thing that you're creating? Is it a human being trying to touch another human being? Or is it just simply straight commodity? We don't have to pay songwriters or artists, and we can still encourage people to go Christmas shopping.
Yeah.
Right?
Tis the season.
So.
Josh, how about you?
My group chats right now, mostly kid snow-related photos being shared around and urgent Jackrabbit matters. But as far as, music and all this goes, the AI music generators have definitely hit me in my friend group. We use them a little differently. We'll make like 80s hair metal versions of songs just to try to invite somebody to come to dinner with us or something. It's hilarious. It's great. But yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at.
But you're not using that in your Uncle Ben's Remedy performances.
No, I'm not. No. I briefly considered having it try to help me with a part, and I think I'm going to just put my foot down and not get involved in that part of my world.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting conversation. And what are the lines and what are the guidelines for it? I think it's right now, it's just, there's nothing. There's no barriers to it. So, especially with ethics. So, it was interesting when we started this conversation before we got on mic. I was like, Josh, what kind of band would you describe Uncle Ben's Remedy to be? And he's like, I don't know how to explain that. And isn't that the beauty of music, though? You said country adjacent. But that is one of the big topics today is we were talking about, country music and, in my world, programming The Bridge, which is our alternative music station, we do play folk and Americana and country, but it's not a lot of the artists that are marketed towards us consider themselves folk because they don't want to be, some of them don't want the country label of what country is now, or that's just the record labels testing them out on alternative stations. And there's just been a whole discussion of, what is country? Margot Price is coming here, and if you go to see her perform live, you think traditional country, but she's also performing folk music festivals, and there's that whole dividing line of what is country and is it become a political thing, which has been mentioned. So why do you feel that we even have genres and labels? Was it just a marketing concept?
Absolutely. One of our discussions in my group chat was about the Montreux Jazz Festival.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the headliners for the Montreux Jazz Festival, they're not jazz artists.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because, of that amalgamation. Our country, the United States, is an amalgamation of people and styles. Mm-hmm. And that amalgamation, for instance, like the music of enslaved people was the blues. Mm-hmm. The music of the working people, I would say, would be country. Mm-hmm. And that's why it fits the Black American and also the white American and also Appalachia.
Mm-hmm. Well, there is an artist now in our world and who was just nominated for one of the country categories, the split, not the modern country, but he is a new country artist. Charlie Crockett started this whole conversation and he's done NPR Tiny Desk. And he kind of called out Morgan Wallen and said, and if you listen to Charlie Crockett, you think like roots country. But then he was not classified as country. And then, he went out with some R&B blues artists and performed. So that kind of started this conversation. And then, Beyonce just turned everything upside down.
Yeah.
So what do genres mean to you, Josh, when you're, you book artists? I know. So I know that authenticity is really important to you and how you book acts at Jackrabbit. So where does the genre label come into your world?
Well, at first we were real rigid. I wanted original bands only. And, it was like, you need to have 1,500 Instagram followers. You got to be doing original music. You got to be trying to be a band. We wanted to kind of help out the kids driving around the country in a van and trailer, but COVID kind of changed that entire world. And now we're relying on a lot of bands that are in town. You only have so many bands that can play for 3 hours that are decent. The original ones will do a mix of originals and covers. And now, if you're going... looking at music listings in Buffalo, things are getting real cover heavy these days, and the cover bands are doing really well. Mm-hmm. So we've opened up a little bit at Jackrabbit where we do the occasional country act, or not country, cover act. Mm-hmm. But we're still trying to stay as original as possible. Mm-hmm. As far as genres go, it's just got to be lively. It's just got to be hip. It's got to be going, because as soon as it's not lively, as much as I love singer-songwriter stuff, as soon as the ballad comes on, all the, younger age 20-something kids that are in the front room are all shuffled off to the back and start dancing. It's really clear what works and what doesn't. So as far as what genre it is, doesn't matter as long as it's rowdy. It works. Funk bands are about as good as we do.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and for you, Buck, what is when you started doing music and you're, across your career, what were some of the things that were important to you to keep in your music or, honor in your music?
Well, so I had kind of started maybe from the folk thing, right? Mm-hmm. I kind of got interested, and my first experiences playing in front of people were at open mics. Things that like Mike Meldrum, who was a local folk artist, would put together. There was a weekly one at Nietzsche's. There was one at UB, and I was a student at UB at the time. So I kind of started out doing this folk singer sort of thing. And then I got into a band that was called the Jack Lords. They were like a garage rock band. We did a couple of songs that were traditional country songs, like the Tennessee Waltz. Mm-hmm. But we did it very revved up and a very fast version of it. So then when that band lasted a couple of years, and had a record deal, but kind of went up and down, as quickly happens with young people. And I started another band called the Steam Donkeys, and we were interested in the country thing, but we weren't so interested in what Nashville was at the time. And it was like hot country hits is what it was kind of called. And you had they were aiming for stadium crowds, and you had people like Garth Brooks and stuff. And so they were aiming for these big crowds, and the whole aesthetic was very loud guitars, rock and roll, smashing guitars even. It was very much borrowing these cliches from rock and roll music. And we were kind of into this thing that was more under the radar and going against the grain of what Nashville was putting out. And there was a whole movement when we started going out on the road, believe it or not. There was this movement out of Atlanta, Georgia, with like kind of younger, hipper college kids who had an ironic take on all this overblown country stuff. And they called it the Redneck Underground. And it was like there was an annual showcase in Atlanta called Bubba-Palooza.
Wow.
Which was a take on Lollapalooza. And it was making fun of all these kind of cliched things that country had come to stand for. And a lot of bands like came out of that, like Drive-By Truckers would play at these shows, like these kinds of acts that were coming up in the 1990s. So our thing was always kind of outside looking in at the whole Nashville thing,
Yeah.
And a lot of it to me, so in other words, I wasn't in lockstep with Nashville then, and I certainly am not now, so I don't really know all of the trends other than to say I was kind of more into an earlier form of it,
Well, is that where the divide, you started seeing the divide with that era? Because, you had the pop country, like the crossover country happening in Nashville. So you had like Shania Twain, you had Garth Brooks, and then, later on you had like the group, like the country rock groups. Is that where you started to see a shift in Nashville too? Because Nashville ended up, it's a rock town. Now it's kind of like back to like the pop country, but then it sort of became a rock town as well.
Yeah. And I think that was, something that we weren't so into, and it seemed to be taking a lot of the original appeal of the music out of it, and again, I think from a marketing standpoint, it was creating this new Nashville sound, right, with the big drums and the big guitars and everything, and it also went hand in hand with the fashion,
Yeah.
Everybody looked like a rodeo rider, it was like a hat and your button snap shirt and your cowboy boots and
and the strip
wardrobe note. I'm sorry.
Oh, listen, we have multiple producers, as you saw when you come in, but one of them asked me if I was going to wear a cowboy hat today, and I said, nope, I am all for, listen, I dressed up for Halloween, but you do not want to see me in a cowboy hat. It's not my personality. It would be super weird and awkward if I sat here. However, I do like traditional country music, the sound of it. I don't know how we're calling, because now there's new artists that sound traditional, but yeah, I do feel like, and then I think as you got the strip in Nashville too, that it's like almost like the Vegas strip that kind of turned into Party Central.
Well, there was that too at the time. There was this thing called like neo-traditionalists, and there were some artists that would harken back to the older forms. So there's always been, I think, this kind of change, and that's probably typical of all kinds of musical genres, right?
Yeah.
Is that they tend to split. This is the way it.
Yep. So George, you've coached a lot of vocal talents, but you also know a lot about music history. So is this a new concept to you? You've probably, based on your knowledge, seen this in other ways.
Absolutely. What I would like to akin it to is, because of the society that we're in, the music will merge. The music will merge, like I mentioned before. You had the slaves who were doing field calls and all that kind of stuff, and then that ultimately became the blues. And then when we became sharecroppers, they worked alongside everybody else, so they're working in the fields, and the stories of those work times in the field became what we call country. And then we have Appalachia, the same situation. The people were in the field working, the stories of their day, that became the stories that were used to create country.
So it's changed a little bit.
Just a little bit.
If you listen to the charted country songs now, it's a little bit different. So we're going to continue to talk more about this, and that's up next on Group Chat on BTPM NPR. Hello, welcome back. You're listening to Group Chat, and I'm here with Josh Mullin, drummer for Uncle Ben's Remedy in Buffalo and co-owner of Jackrabbit in Buffalo. George Davis, who is a vocal coach in Buffalo for area performers, also a music teacher for over 30 years, and he just did the impressive Dreamgirls show that everybody's been raving about as a vocal coach. And Buck Quigley, frontman, singer, songwriter for the Steam Donkeys, and a member of the Buffalo Music Hall of Fame. So we are talking about country music specifically today, but also all of the genres, and in that whole discussion. So Americana, folk, the history of country, and how that all goes together. And I've noticed a theme that keeps coming up in your conversations, and it's authenticity. So where do you think we're at with this now, especially with the Grammy nominations in all of the categories? Do you think that authenticity is lost once it starts to become something that needs to be popular, or you start chasing things, or is that just a natural progression?
I think people always crave authenticity, just in general. At least a lot of people do. Obviously not the masses if you look at who's charting. But like Jesse Wells, he's had an amazing band for 15 years or whatever.
Yeah.
And he finally hits because he writes a super political song and sings it in a cornfield, in front of a camera, just him and a guitar. And that's how he gets his hit, because it's authentic, it's raw, it's just one man, one guitar, one microphone. And people just gravitate towards that. Especially now with the way that country is going, I feel like it's almost drawing a line in the sand. It's like, okay, these are the guys that use the samples and, have sparkly hats. And then these are the guys that are plugging into an amplifier that needs to heat up and has tubes in it. And it's just kind of a separation.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, it seems that there's a definite separation in sound and topic as well.
Yeah. When authenticity meets skill, that's when we have a real performance.
Yeah.
Because what usually happens is the machine sees somebody, hey, we should put a sparkly hat on you and get you out there. Let's get you a song and make it have all the accoutrements of country music. And there it is. But that's not what we're looking for. This country is now craving authenticity. And that's what we're seeing when we look at the Academy Awards and all the award shows. We're seeing our country saying, hey, wait a minute, we want authenticity now.
Yes. Yeah. It's funny that Josh mentioned Jesse Wells, because he had the song, and then he was just putting out content every single day on like TikTok and Instagram, and there would be some sort of political situation that would happen or some sort of pop culture, and he would have a song about it that day. Yeah,
look at South Park. I mean, politically relevant immediacy is really hot right now.
Yeah.
So people are craving it. And music, it's awesome. It's a 1-2 punch.
Yeah, and I think it's a release for a lot of people, I think, right now. So I think hearing people that are speaking what they're feeling is important.
Yeah.
And, like you said about the categories and people finally getting their moment, there was so much controversy about Beyonce, and is that a country song? And it's a country song, like, if you listen to it. But her as a pop artist. But I think one of the important things was the people that she brought on to her album as well, because I know that Rhiannon Giddens, who played fiddle on her album, was in Carolina Chocolate Drops, was a solo artist. Sure. She goes way back. Super talented. And, that's how she's gotten recognition lately. So there's always like these adjacent things happening.
When we want to have authenticity, we must look at the history of that particular art form, and then that history will inform our innovations. The innovations that the artist wants to do will be informed by its history. And if there's a lack of that looking back, or if it's a precursory looking back by just grabbing a couple of artists and throwing them on your album, it won't be authentic, and the audience won't like it.
Yeah, interesting. So it was, do you think it was to say that she brought on artists Because I see where you're going with
Yeah,
this.
you know where I'm going with this.
I know where you're going with this.
Yeah, it's just a sparkling cowboy hat
Yes.
situation, right?
Yeah.
It's not authentic. It's a prop.
Yes.
Has she wore sparkly cowboy hats before in concerts?
Well, Rhiannon Giddens hasn't, but Beyonce has.
Right.
So there's, yeah.
Sure.
So I wondered that because I'm always torn on the machine of that.
Yes.
And I'm also not happy that she just went to Kris Jenner's birthday party, but that's another story. But since we are a pop culture show, it's like.
But what performers need to do now is we need to embrace and understand multiple styles. That's what we're just talking about. And once we have that, we still need to have a true sense of ourself.
Mm-hmm.
That true sense of self needs to be informed by those other styles. So you can still perform those other styles, but the level of authenticity will be based on the depth of your knowledge and skill in that particular genre.
Yeah.
I think that's really well stated, George. And I think that the thing about country music, if you go back to its roots and its general appeal, you were talking about like the working class, like it being music of the working class. I would even take it a step further that the poor and
Yes.
people who are really struggling, people who, like if they lose their job, it's crisis time, and it's not an era where people are going to call their counselor to chat about it,
Right.
And there are a lot of things with country music. I think some of the songs that really resonated with people, they worked as a balm upon their soul, to hear that there are other people out there struggling just like they are.
Yes.
And hopefully the best of these songs, leaves them with some kind of an uplifting message.
Yeah.
Right?
It's an interesting take because, like, in country, you could have somebody extremely successful and wealthy singing about real life blue collar stuff, right? That they can't relate to whatsoever. The same, you flip it around, you got hip hop artists that are broke that are singing about being gajillionaires. It's like, what do you want to be writing about? What's the image that you're trying to portray? Does that actually have anything to do with the life that you're living, or are you just trying to live the truth of the style you're trying to play?
Right.
Well,
And I think what's happening now, though, in our society is the authenticity of the songwriter. Basically, when the songwriter performs it, you actually feel the closeness that they had to it, to the piece initially. But when it's given to the machine, then it becomes something else. And I think our society and the judges are starting to notice that, and that's why some of the big names aren't winning these awards anymore. It's these authentic artists that are winning the awards now.
Well, I think it's undeniable too. And, I know there's a Grammy committee, but there's also things that go into that. And I think the audience is responding too, because you can't deny album sales or streaming for some of these artists like a Charlie Crockett who is nominated. And, Buck, you said something, both of you all have mentioned something about, and I think class keeps coming up. And I think that's why I'm so confused right now. And because there is obviously a divide in our country. There's a big class divide. But the crazy thing right now is the working class with traditional country, they found a voice. Now it's almost like country has become this like elite, people with money and cowboy boots and these like Instagram, perfect lives and parties. And, and it seems like it's all about, it's not really about the struggle anymore. It's more about
And I think it's to cover up the struggle and to make everyone feel that you should have a glamorous and flawless life all the time, which is kind of the antithesis.
I think it's the machine. I think it's the machine covering up, trying to monetize the struggle. And turning it into something that's not authentic.
Yep. Well, and then you have artists that are just coming up and getting discovered. There's been, it's funny, there's country artists, they sound like country, but they're categorized as folk. And, like, for example, Charlie Crockett was homeless and singing on the street and got discovered, but, then you have this weird, like Tyler Childers, if you listen to his music, it sounds like country, but then he's nominated and like considered like a pop crossover.
Pop crossover in country is nothing new.
Yes. But is it a crossover or is it a manufactured? I think some of the sound kind of like the sound becomes popular or people like them, so then they cross them over to pop. But then there's also the level of the manufactured sound, as you were talking about, because Taylor Swift, if you listen to her early stuff, she sounds like a country, like playing guitar, acoustic guitar, but now there's no country left in that.
Just
so
pop.
It was like a machine.
Yep.
Yeah.
Got it.
Any artist can have pop songs that are still live inside its genre. I mean, you'd never heard punk rock on the radio until Blink-182 and Green Day came out. Right?
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden there's pop punk, right? So there's pop country, there's pop whatever.
Yeah.
It's just trying to figure out a way to make this music that you play more marketable so you can make some money off of it.
Yeah. Well, so is that what, I guess as an artist, is that what you decide? I guess you might come to a turning point where you're just like, what's more important?
You have to decide, do you want authenticity or do you want the funds?
Yeah.
And when you get to that level, I guess they have to make that decision.
Yeah.
But what we're looking at is the fallout from all of that right now.
Well, and you know, the subculture always becomes the culture eventually, right?
True.
So, you know, right now, like Americana and Focus kind of is having a big moment. Not on the level of like the pop country stuff, but I think that was like the undercurrent of the response to the pop country and people not feeling like that was speaking to them.
Right.
So now that's kind of rising up.
I remember when it happened.
Yeah.
I mean, I was on the phone with our radio promotions guy, and he was telling me about this new genre on AAA radio that they were talking about inaugurating. It was called Americana.
Yeah.
Because before that, they were calling it alt country.
Yep.
They had a couple different names for it until they settled upon Americana. The reason that I know this is because he was joking with me, because our band's first record was called Cosmic Americana. And they were saying, oh, maybe the Steam Donkeys are going to sue us, right? And it was a joke, you know, that we were having. But now that I think of it, is that the reason we called it that, it was going back to this artist, Graham Parsons, who called cosmic American music, right? Because back in the late 60s and early 70s, he was noticing how country music, you know, has got this set of listeners, you know, driving pickup trucks with brush cuts, you know, and then there's these young people who are listening to that, but they're also digging R&B and stuff. So why not this blend and call it, you know, of all of America's musics, right? Because it's the most popular kind of music around the world, right? Blues, jazz, you know, all of these things. This is one of our greatest exports, and it's because of all these different sort of cultures percolating away. That's the way I always see it. So.
I like that. I like that version of that, of thinking about Americana, because I think just because of my business, I'm just always so, like, how do these titles, where do they matter? And is it just a marketing thing? And I do think there is some element of people, like, I know how people listen to music is different than how they say they listen to music.
Yes.
So you might be like, I only listen to hip hop, or I only listen to country, or I only listen to this. Some people are like that because they want to label it, but really they don't. They're surfing around in their car. They're playing what the mood feels like.
Unfortunately, though, in this society, because of streaming, we now can just listen to what we like.
Yeah.
And I think that might be a detriment to our society in that sense. Because you remember we were growing up and we would turn on the radio, we heard everything. You had to wait for your next song.
Right. Yeah.
Now that doesn't happen anymore. So now people just literally only hear what they want to hear, and they don't grow. They don't develop. The styles won't even change. Think about it as a developing artist.
Yeah.
You heard something different. You're like, hey, that's interesting. Let me try something else. Let me see if I can make that part of what I do. Now everybody's in their own little silos, and that doesn't happen as much.
Yeah. And I think now look at the history of that. You know, a lot of artists, you know, radio was the way people discovered music, or these artists got their recognition even, you know, back at the invention of radio. So what are the things that we are missing that we're not talking enough about in history, especially with music and country music? It's weird. You used to always hear Johnny Cash brought up because he was still making music, and there was still, you know, the Walk the Line came on, you would hear people. I feel like you don't hear people talking about him as much anymore. And then you got to go back to like Charlie Pride and the roots of all of that. So what are some of the important parts, George, that we're missing that we need to remember?
I would say go back to the Carters.
Mm-hmm.
And start there and understand the connection that they made within the genre, all of the connections that they made.
Yeah.
And also, remember the people who of other races who helped them as well.
Yeah.
And that's where we are now. And if we don't reach back and we don't look at it and tell the whole story, we end up with a watered down version of what country music really is.
And a boring version.
Yes, a very, very, very boring version.
You look at Austin City Limits, 50 years old, and think about the artists that were the original artists on there, and then where that's come to, We just had Kendrick Lamar on Austin City Limits, but it was such a source of music discovery, and it might have started as one genre and then kind of morphed into different things, but for a music show to be around for 50 years... They got to be doing something right with the music exposure.
But, you're thinking, I'm thinking back to a couple of voice students that I know, and introducing them to country western was actually a good idea because that was where their voice sat. And now they sing it and they sound great because, I introduced it to them. But, they didn't get a chance to hear it on the radio.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Discovering it yourself and say, wait a minute, I can do that, and get the right sound out, that's a whole different story. But you need the teacher now to show them, or we need the adults in the room who have experienced these things to introduce this music to the new batch of kids coming up.
Yeah.
The new batch of performers.
Yeah. Josh, with Uncle Ben's Remedy, it is such like a lively... It's such an experience. And
it's something.
It's something. And you're the drummer, and I feel like drummers don't get enough credit, but you kind of like set the tone for the band.
I literally have a beep in my ear that's setting the tone.
Oh, really?
Well, on a click track for a lot of stuff, but not a lot live. I don't like to. I like to let the emotion kind of take over.
Yeah.
You gotta be bringing it when you're playing drums,
But as a drummer, you set the feel.
And
because of your history and the style, you can bring those nuances into that space.
That's the beauty of the band. You got 4 or 5 different people that come from different musical backgrounds that are all bringing in these little tidbits. So if you listen to a lot of the rhythmic aspects that I bring into the band, I don't play traditional country drums as much as the rest of the band came up with country roots. My background's all punk rock or like Brit pop. So I'll hit the kick and the snare at the same time, like the British guys do, that nobody in the United States seems to want to do. And I'll do a punk beat over a country part, and it just kind of works. It's still do. Why not just hit 1 and 2? It controls everything. It's my favorite seat in the house.
So when you're developing talent, George, is that something important to notice that, this person, they might be in this kind of band, but I see some of this in them, or I see some country in them, or I see some punk in them.
Exactly. What happens is once you help them notice that, they can start doing research and then grabbing nuances from that style to incorporate into their own, which is what we need in our society now. Yeah. Because we're no longer looking for perfection. We're looking for authenticity from artists. And in order for that to happen, to get authenticity, you need to look back and make sure that you're representing those styles, but also being true to yourself at the same time.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I think the best part is hearing the stuff that isn't perfect, or the people that just go off the cuff, or, kind of come into themselves. So we'll keep talking about this. We're talking country, folk, Americana, and then a ton of other genres too, because we have musical people in this room, and it's not just about 1 or 2 genres. So coming up next on Group Chat and BTPM NPR. Welcome back to Group Chat. I'm your host, Bentley, and I'm here with some great guests today in the music world in Buffalo, but beyond, because we have a music city in Buffalo, in case you haven't realized that. We have Josh Mullin, drummer for Uncle Ben's Remedy and co-owner of Jackrabbit in Buffalo. George Davis II, who is a vocal coach for many area performers and also behind the vocal talents of Dreamgirls that we just got to see. And he's also a music teacher, over 30 years. He's been a music teacher in Buffalo. And Buck Quigley, frontman and songwriter for the Steam Donkeys, also a member of the Buffalo Music Hall of Fame. So our discussions originally started when we were planning this episode around about just like country music really being in popular culture and in the conversation. And then, you know, the Grammy list was announced and they have split the country genre into modern country and traditional country. And, you know, there's been conversations on, is it based on political leaning, which one you're in? You know, so because, you know, you have the pop country and like the top 40 country, and then you have some of the subculture. And then you've had your crossovers. Obviously, Taylor Swift was one back in the day. Carrie Underwood, you know, I know recently, you know, you had Maren Morris who played the Newport Folk Festival, and it seemed that she was kind of breaking away from the country label because she wanted to be a little bit more vocal about what was going on in the world and her lifestyle. So do you think that, how do you think these shows in pop culture have influenced how we view these artists? So shows like The Voice and American Idol and some of these competition shows, do you think it's given good exposure to artists, or has that just contributed more to the pop machine?
The Voice, and I mean, those guys now, Letter to Elise, they just went pretty far. That did some good stuff for them. Those are Buffalo guys. Definitely gets them some cred. I mean, it's one of those things. If you're really that good, you can actually get huge exposure by doing it. It's an internationally viewed talent show. I mean, there hasn't been that clear of a path to the top in a long time, where if you're actually just good enough to do it, you can do it, and not a who you know sort of thing, which is kind of everybody else talks about all the time.
Yeah.
I think it's great, to be honest with you.
Yeah. And you have different, they've definitely tried to bring in like different genres. So you've had like a country music coach, you've had your Blake Shelton and Gwen Stefani. That's a whole
I think they do that
story.
just to kind of broaden the potential audience.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I had one student on The Voice in Germany.
Oh, wow.
And he did rather well. His name's John Alexander online. And they did the same kind of thing in Germany. They had various artists who were experts in various areas.
Yeah.
And they that's it. I almost said it.
No, I mean, there's probably a lot you can't talk about, right? Yes. Yeah. How, who can you talk about, or what can you talk about your work and how you, are brought into these artists' lives? Are you working with beginners? Or you're working with people that want to improve their craft? They're already in it.
I'm working with artists on various levels. Some are professional, some are just getting started, some are worship leaders in churches, some are gigging musicians on a weekly basis. You could go out if you go out in Buffalo, and I guarantee that you've run into somebody that I've trained. Yeah.
Well, and then so even speaking about that is this kind of music, this like heartfelt music, starts in a lot of different places. And you mentioned churches.
Yes.
And we need to have a whole other episode on this in itself. But, you know, as we've been talking about authenticity, this all doesn't start at American Idol or The Voice. It starts somewhere in a person.
It starts in struggle. It starts in pain. Where all music starts. It starts from one person being strong enough to actually express themselves and then share with someone else.
Yeah.
And that's how it starts. And that's how it needs to continue. But in our society, because of, I think that's the negative side of American Idol and all those other shows, we expect everybody to be perfect.
Yeah.
And when we talk about AI, we expect everything to be perfect. You know, there are people who actually put videos up and it's auto-tuned, and they're vocal coaches. And now you have children who are thinking that that's the expectation. I can't do it, and they shut down.
Yeah.
And that's the horrible thing that's happening because of AI. But and I think that might be stopping the production of quality music. Someone has a great song in them, and they're scared to get it out.
Yeah, because of the idea of perfectionism, which I think, you know, Buck, you probably have some things to say about this.
I'd like to hop on that train for a second there, because I I was thinking about this, about the award shows,
Yeah.
and I suppose like these kind of competition shows, like The Voice and everything, that what winds up happening, to my mind, I start to see more and more similarities between music and sports.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, can so-and-so repeat as best whatever,
Yeah.
singer of the year or whatever, and it's like, that doesn't feel to me like the kind of party that like music should be. I mean, there should be space for other voices, for other sounds, I when I look at it as a competition like that, what are we measuring? If it's the Grammys, right? This was started by the Recording Industry of America. Okay, that's what this contest was.
Mm-hmm.
They were interested in what? Not recording things and moving that product, right? So this is why they were honoring people who had moved product, and by saying, hey, these guys are really hot, hopefully you move some more product.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that these kinds of award things, you can't look at them without including, the economic concerns that are driving it,
Well, and if you look at the visual elements that, American Idol was one of the early ones. The image became such a thing because you even look at like Carrie Underwood, and when she started, she was like this quiet, curly-haired girl, and next thing you know, she's makeup and hair, and I mean she looks beautiful, but you kind of see that
Rhinestone Cowboy
trajectory of what they're making her into.
Image, right?
Image, and then is that
American Idol?
Yeah, yep. Was it? Yeah. So it's like, and then are we setting unreal expectations? But then social media was like, oh hey, you like that? Well, check this out, But at the same time, social media has also brought a way for musicians to share their music in different ways and become popular, on TikTok because somebody finds their song and uses it in a bunch of videos. So
the entire game has changed so much from the days of radio promotions people, and payola. I mean, all of these kinds of things. Now, royalties, what? It's mainly about live shows, right?
Yep. Well, and payola got brought down in New York State. Like, this is where all of the research and lawsuits started. And, it's funny because I feel like it's not how it used to be by any means, but there's still always ways to things that find their way into the business models.
Right. For instance, I was just thinking about comparing the back of selling CDs out of your back of your car in your trunk to online streaming. And I guess that would be our version of that. But guess what? Even right now, you can buy bots to actually fake streams.
Yep.
And a lot of people are doing that, and that's the sad part.
Yep. Josh, when you were playing punk music, because you were assigned band, so before the Uncle Ben's Remedy, you had another life.
I've been in bands my entire life. The biggest one I was in before this was actually not a punk band. It was Last Conservative, but we were, a hard-hitting rock band, and we're kind of precipice-ing. We did MTV and all that right around the time that like big emo was coming out. So there was this big push from all the labels. You guys should be playing more emo type music. Have you heard of Boys Like Girls or, All American Rejects play music like that? It's like, oh, I guess we could, that's kind of where that was.
Yeah. But you got to experience the touring life. And,
I was in the last generation, I think, that unfortunately for everybody else, was able to grab a couple of your friends and hop in the back of a van. As long as you sold 4 T-shirts that night, you could get to the next town, and the venue would feed you. Yeah, and that's just not the real world that it is. Because back then we're talking, mid 2000s, I would say, is when things kind of crashed down on all that. Mohawk Place would have 4 vans parked out in front of it. Nietzsche's would have 4 vans parked out in front of that. Show Place Theater would have 4 vans parked out in front of that. You're talking about 12 bands right there that are in town just driving around, not to mention the big clubs. That's just not what people are doing anymore. They're just not going out to little local shows, so it doesn't keep, mid-level bands driving around the country in vans and trailers.
Yeah.
But yes, I did get to experience it most valuable years of my life. And it's a shame that more people can't do that forever.
Were you selling CDs out of the back of the van?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Selling CDs, selling anything we could.
So I know we've talked a little bit about political moments in music, and we were talking about Jesse Wells in particular, who, has just put content out every day. Do you think, I think that's been a lot of his draw, is the authenticity in his words. But, and that's helped him. I think a lot of it has to do in the time that we're in now. But then you've had bands like the Dixie Chicks who basically got torn down because of their political views. So does it depend on the time that we're in? Should artists be political? I mean,
yes,
if
they should be political. More political.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Are you kidding me? I mean, that's the reason you create art, right? Is to express yourself and something that you feel deeply about. And right now is a tough time where a lot of people feel deeply about things and feel like they can't do much about it. So yeah, maybe singing along to a song while you're sitting at a stoplight lets you get something out, but at least there's that.
Yeah. And this isn't a new concept.
Yeah, well, I mean, the country is clearly polarized like crazy. I don't recall a time in my life when it's been this
bad. Yeah.
And it's difficult to know how to even approach the subject. And I think one of the things, just speaking from my own life experience, because I think I'm the senior voice in this room. I mean, I can remember life was different,
Yeah.
It was different when you only had a few channels of news, when you only had radio stations to listen to, and not everything was at your command.
Yeah.
When you can curate your own news that you get, your own music that you listen to, everything can be tailored to suit your tastes, and it makes everybody such an individual in a way.
Yeah.
And there isn't that kind of
communal.
Yeah, and feeling that yes, we've got struggles, we've got differences, we've got things we have to conquer together. There isn't that so much of that right now, and that's how do you rekindle it? I'm not positive how to, or I would be doing it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, music was always the joining force, and I feel like with how divided we are, that's becoming less and less.
It really was. I was talking to some of my friends of mine in a group chat, and we were talking about how on the radio we would listen to Casey Kasem, right? And whatever came on, we ended up listening to it, no matter what style it was. And that doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah,
it doesn't happen anymore, and that's changed me as a musician. I'm interested in. I can listen to different styles, different countries' music. It doesn't matter. It doesn't bother me. Actually, I learned from it.
Yep.
But people don't have that opportunity now.
No, and it seems like everything is a classification now. Like if you do this, you're this. If you listen to this, you're this. If you call it this, you're this.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, those classifications have come from some people that might fall into those categories. But then, as you know, that's how prejudice happens. Exactly. Is you start generalizing what people should do or think. And,
sure.
Yeah, which halftime show you planning on watching, right?
Right. Right. I mean,
it's so crazy.
Right.
The fact that that's even happening.
I know. It's bonkers.
That, that was an event that even, everybody came together to watch, even though you had two opposing teams and fans on each side. I just still don't think it was as divisive as splitting a halftime show. Yeah. So how does music move forward? Not just in these genres that we're talking about today, but how do things move forward, especially with, AI as a threat? And how does the authenticity remain for different cultures and different genres?
I think I saw a friend's post recently, Josh English, he's a great drummer in town. No, my friend Mark actually put it up. And he said, everybody's upset about AI creating music and you just want to listen to something that has no machine on it. But we've been doing this for a long time, right? People have been playing to a click track as long as there's been click tracks, as long as there's been recording. There's been auto-tune even when I record the last album, I play everything and then we go look at it for 12 hours and move a hit left and right in Pro Tools and just move it a little bit. And there's people shifting things. So there's been computers helping music for decades. It's just a matter of how much. And now I think it's gotten to the point where it's so saturated, and especially the AI stuff, it's like, oh, this is so fake sounding. Can I please just hear 6 strings in a raspy voice, please? I don't care if it's out of tune.
Yeah.
I think that's people are just really starved for that, just because it's been such a slow progression that's allowing more machine in music.
Yeah. Well, especially like with the laptop, obviously nobody wanted it this way, but a lot of, they called it like laptop music, came out of the COVID era, because people were just at home messing around and, and a lot, there was good music that came out, but it was actually a person creating it. But I mean, I don't know. I've done the test where they have you listen to like a piece of music and they'll say, okay, what produced, so was it lyrics? Where was AI involved? Lyrics, music, production. And you had to name all 3. And I can definitely tell lyrics. And I can tell voice. Production is the one where, because we've been using so much computers with production for a while. Sure. But I can usually, I'm pretty good at recognizing. That's not going to be for long. I know it's going to AI is probably going to get better and, be able to clone us,
like but went through a Nickelback filter.
You did. It's so
on the vocals, it's all
that
like
one wave.
Kroger,
Yeah. That's really
true.
funny.
The vocals, that's how I can always tell. It's AI vocals, like,
and the themes, the words, like party, and there's always something.
So technology should be used. I use it a lot, but the song has to serve the emotional backing of the song. And if it doesn't serve that, that's what's happening. We get that part lost, and authenticity's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's even people fighting against algorithms in the music that they hear, which was, back before even, Spotify and things like that, like Pandora, which now I think they've gotten better, but Pandora used to go by beats per minute. So it wasn't necessarily, you would just start hearing all the same songs that weren't even artists that you liked. And then, which is funny because Apple Music actually has people making the playlists and curating the radio stations, and they're one of the most progressive technologies, and they still have people doing a lot of that stuff, because I think the Pandora model failed miserably because people at first were into it and then they realized they were hearing the same songs all the time, or they were hearing stuff that they didn't really like,
it also pulls a lot from like genre. Like I would put on a Foo Fighters radio station. I love the Foo Fighters, but I hate the Chili Peppers. So you put on Foo Fighters, now you're listening to the Chili Peppers.
Yeah.
Like, these guys were popular at the same time and on the same radio stations, but they don't sing about the same stuff. They do not represent the same things. They don't play their instruments in the same way. They're not similar whatsoever. So where do algorithms fit in your life when you listen to music?
Well, I was just going to say, I don't know what, why this is. It must, like, say if I'm on Facebook, because I'm of a certain age where I go on Facebook. and I'm sitting there looking at it and I'm like, why am I getting this ad for this service where I could upload one of my songs and get feedback on what it's lacking to make it a major hit?
Wow.
And I'm like, wow, man. I mean, like, what kind of logarithm am I trapped in that it's trying to get me to bite?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's one of the little things that puzzles me. It's like, what kind of a consumer am I identified as, and why am I seeing this? Because
you can discover music through some of the streaming service.
I guess this was because it was a service marketed toward people who can fancy themselves songwriters, right?
Yeah, they've got your number.
Right.
Well, the shorts always get me. So when I'm working, I actually have a filter that blocks off the shorts, so that way I don't get sidetracked.
Yeah.
But usually the shorts always intrigue me because there's usually some great singer. And then I've discovered this thing. I'm like, hey, this person's really good. And I go into a deep dive. So I'm guilty.
Yeah, no, listen, there's and it's gotten better in a lot of ways depending on the service that you're on. But you can always see when the services try to cut back, and then they kind of like realize something doesn't work, and then they go back the other way. You can always kind of see that in the algorithms. I mean, maybe I pay too much attention to it, but so yeah, this is it's been a great conversation, and I think we need to continue this across genres. We definitely have to have a conversation on spiritual music and faith, and but it all ends up coming together because people are influenced by many different things. So I appreciate you all talking about this, and you're all very talented and busy people. So what are you guys doing over this upcoming weekend? Are there any shows that you're going to see or things you're doing? Or, I mean, Josh, you're, running a business. We know this, but what do you have coming up?
This weekend, I'm actually trying to kind of hunker down, wrap up some house projects before the snow continues to fly. So getting ready for some busy season. My band is currently writing, so we're in pretty intense writing mode right now. So we'll do a rehearsal and flush out like 10 ideas. And then we have actual homework. So I got to write parts and then be back for the next week. So I'm playing a lot of drums these days and just trying to come up with cool events for the holidays, keep my businesses going.
Are you still going to do the holiday show that you did every year?
The Musicians Mixer?
What did you call it though? It was no.
Which one? The Musicians Mixer?
Yeah, no, the one that CPX did.
Oh, CPX Miss?
Yeah.
I don't know. I doubt it. We might do it this year. I haven't even breached the subject. That band doesn't play anymore. Andrew's determined not to play. But the show, I mean, we did it for like 12 years.
Yeah, so I think you need to.
We might do it.
Okay. And then all the other stuff.
The Musicians Mixer is my favorite event every year. We do it second week in December. We invite any band, anybody that's played at Jackrabbit throughout the year to come. It's free drinks, free food, just kind of a thank you to the Buffalo music community.
Nice.
Yeah, and we open up the stage for jamming, which used to be a lot easier. Now people really want to get there and the list is too long and then they get all upset that they didn't get up. So we've had to have rules and stuff. It's getting a little convoluted, but it's still my favorite night of the year.
I love it. Buck, how about you?
Well, I'm gonna go out of here, go home, grab my guitar, and go play at our weekly gig at Nietzsche's. So we play every Tuesday from 6 to 8:30. So that accounts for my 52 gigs a year.
Yeah.
And don't have to book much more than that.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah, well, it's a lot of fun, too. So we're really enjoying it. We've got some new band members. I mean, there have been so many members of the Steam Donkeys over the years.
Yeah.
And right now, we've got a really cool lineup. And the other thing I will say about doing a weekly kind of residency gig or whatever, we've done these at different times throughout the band's career, and they are such a great way to get the band playing at a good level, you know, because it's not getting together to rehearse. It is boom, week after week. And what it also does is help build up a crowd, So we've got like a bunch of folks who come out and enjoy it, and it's all music devoted to having fun,
Yeah.
It's great.
I'm sensing a theme here of trying to have fun.
Well, this week I'm spending time with my family, and I'm going out to see a couple of my students who are performing.
Okay, so George, are those like live music performances?
Live music performances, yes.
Do you have any theater performances coming up?
No theater performances.
You need a break.
Yeah.
That was a lot of work.
Yeah.
So that's great that you go out and see your students perform.
Yes, I try as much as I can to get out,
And they probably really appreciate
sit
that
in the back.
support.
Sometimes they get nervous, so I kind of stay in the back.
Yeah.
Because they think I'm judging them, and I think, just watching the show.
Well, are there any performances you want to plug, or do you want to?
I can't.
Okay, all right. Listen, I'm always giving you a chance to get yourself out there. All right. Well, that wraps up today's episode of Group Chat for now. If you want to continue the conversation, make sure you follow us on Instagram at BTPMNPR. Also, check us out on the video podcast on the Buffalo Toronto Public Media YouTube channel. I'd like to thank my guests, Josh Mullin, George Davis, and Buck Quigley, and the Group Chat team. Producer Haley Hellenbrook, audio engineer and editor Rich Ells, technical director Bailey Kreitoff, social media associate Katie Doherty, production intern Samantha Heppel and Justin Schweitzberg, director of audio strategy SJ Velasquez, director of content Pat Kelly, and all the crew here. I'm your host, Bentley. Have a great weekend, and thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.